to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Really excited, of course, to be here with everybody today. And if you do like what you see in here on this show and want to support it, by all means, hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. Give the video a thumbs up and a comment. And if you follow the show on any other form of social media or streaming service, by all means, give the show a like and a follow there. Today's show, I have a brand new interview with Iron Savior mastermind Piet Sielck. Pete has been a staple on my show for 27 years now, and pretty much for most of the album cycles that Iron Savior has gone through. Pete's come on the show and we've talked over the years, and he's one of those people that has been coming on the show since the beginning. And Iron Savior, of course, has a brand new album coming out. It is called Reforged Machine World. I believe it comes out August 22nd, 2025. And we talk a lot about that album and a lot about the band's history and a lot more. So with that being said, here is the interview with myself and Piet Sielck from Iron Savior. Enjoy. Welcome everybody back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. I'm here with a longtime contributor to my show, as you might want to say, or guest for almost 30 years, Piet Sielck from Iron Savior. Whose music I grew up with as a young adult when the first Iron Savior album came out back in 1997. And now we have a new Reforged album, which consists of re-recorded songs from, the early part of the band's catalog. And we have a third one. It's called Machine World. And it's great to have you on my show yet again for another album cycle to talk about this record, which I think turned out really, really well. And talk a little bit about this third installment. I believe this is the final one you're going to do.
It's because with that one, mainly I think there's one or two songs that are not covered yet, but I don't think I'm making an entire album of those two missing songs.
Well,
that's gonna be the last one.
They could always be bonus tracks. You've done that before. So we have this new album, Reforged Machine World, and one of the biggest complaints I had about the first two is you had no songs from the interlude EP, and now you have 3 of them, which I think were huge improvements over. I was surprised that they would be an improvement, but I like these new versions better than the EP. Which the EP I absolutely loved when it came out. And then, of course, you also have done, new versions of songs from, Dark Assault. I remember when that album came out, I was not the happiest of people when, you heard the production on it. But I think you've really done those songs justice, as we say. I think those saw the biggest improvement. So talk about making this third one, picking the songs for it, and you have a couple singles out as well.
Picking the singles, that actually wasn't that hard because, from the Dark Assault, actually it was hard. Because from the Dark Assault, the first single was planned to be "Never Say Die," of course.
Yeah.
But then it turned out to be that the song I was the most unhappiest with on the Dark Assault album, which I was unhappy with it in general. We talked about that on earlier shows. Now, "Eye of the World" all of a sudden turned out to be the best song of this entire re-recording session. Not necessarily the best song, but one of the best songs. And since it started out being the worst song of all Iron Savior songs ever. That, of course, qualified this baby to be the first single, of course. And, I didn't do very much to the song. I only did a little tweaks and twists here and there. I changed a little bit the arrangement and also, the sound. I think the sound of the Dark Assault, we talked about that earlier, I never was happy with. When I recorded it the first time, I was really into this, huge drum sound samples and all that kind of stuff. And I overdid. It's quite overloaded. And And so on Reforged 1 and 2, I already was happy to bring those songs that are on those albums to a really good sound, and with Eye of the World and the remaining songs from Dark Assault, it's the same. So I agree with you. This is for those songs, it's the most improvement of all.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't think the songs themselves were the issue. It was mainly the production. That's really where I thought that things fell short. And I remember the song Never Say Die because you had it on the single for that album. It was actually the second track on there. You had some pretty cool, interesting covers on that EP. If I remember correctly, you had Delivering the Goods, and then you had a Crocus cover. You always pick very interesting covers to do. To record stuff that people wouldn't like, the Seal cover of Crazy or, stuff like that. I just think you've always picked some interesting cover songs, but every time you do cover tracks, it always goes back to the band that's on your shirt right now, Judas Priest. I mean, that always felt like that's like probably one of the bands that influenced you the most. It feels like.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, if you can find it, I will tell you my favorite cover of Desert Plains is on the Interlude EP. I still go back to that a lot. That EP was actually very big for me when it came out. So I was excited when you put songs from that on there. But you did leave off Hatchet of War. That's the only complaint that I can give you.
Yeah, no, Hatchet of War. When I listened back to the song after so many years, and I keep listening to it, it just didn't touch me anymore. I thought, no, this song is just not cool enough to be re-recorded. Yeah. It can stay. I don't want to erase it, but putting work into it and trying to make this, because the song itself is just not good. I have to admit. I think the lyrics are ridiculous, and there is no way to fix the lyrics, and I cannot change the lyrics, and also the drum arrangement, and so then there was a lot of work to be done to this song to make it good, and I didn't feel like doing it. So I said, this is one song that I will not re-record, and the world will have to live with it. But this song is, but it's still there, and you can still listen to an interlude, but I didn't see it wasn't qualified for re-recording.
Yeah. So you had a label change. Obviously, AFM went through kind of a buyout, as we want to say, and pretty much all of those bands have left, and now you're with a label called Perception, which is new. It's part of Raining Phoenix Music. Maybe talk a bit about the move going to the new record label.
Well, I mean, for me, I could have looked for a different new label. I mean, why I was landed with a Perception label or Raining Phoenix is that the people I work with at AFM, which is mainly Jochen Richter and Nils Vasco, they all went to Raining Phoenix, and they are now running this Perception label. So it's so only the name has changed, but the people I work with are basically the same. And since I felt very good handled, so to speak, at AFM with those guys. For me, also the offer was good, and so there was no need for me to go look for something else. So yeah. I'm good. So we continue working like we did the past, ever since the landing, and I also know the guys from the Dockyard times, where they were selling the label. So I have a history with those people, and so it felt good and right to do it. So that's why I'm at Perception now.
Yeah. So you have a new single coming out. It might be out by the time I put this interview up, but you have another single coming out as well off the album. And, maybe talk about picking that specific track. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's this track. It's taken from the Conditioned Red album, Walls of Fire. And it's a great song. It's also a great song on Conditioned Red. But since there's so many other really great and awesome songs on Conditioned Red. I mean, there's Titans, there's Ironbound, there's Paradise, there's Mindfeeder, blah, 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 and so on. Protector, all that. And so Walls of Fire always was a little bit in the shade of those monsters, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
And now that it's been taking off the shade of from all those iconic Condition Red songs, it started to have its own life, you know. Let me put it like this, and I always loved this song, and but now that it's out of the Condition Red context, it's even better for me, and I think it's a very strong song. It has a it's a really powerful song. Actually, we're already thinking of putting it into our live set, because it also would be great to perform this one live. Yeah, so that's why we picked Walls of Fire as the second single.
Any of these tracks, you know, did your opinion, you know, you look back at creating these albums, and, you know, it's interesting to look back almost 3 decades of creating this stuff, but did your opinion change on some of these songs so many years later when you went back and re-recorded them? Like, were there a lot of songs that, you know, you would have looked back and said, yeah, that song was okay, but then you go and redo it and you like the song better, you know? And then, you know, you mentioned A Hatchet of War. You look back, not as big of a fan of that song as you were before, but then the song you just mentioned now, you re-record it and you're like, you know, this is more powerful. This sounds better. You know, was there a lot of that going on? And just over the course of these last 3 records of these Reforged albums you've done? Well,
I mean, for me, because I'm a producer and I'm you know, start differently. I just had a talk with people on Facebook, new versions versus old versions, you know, and of course I can understand all the people who are saying, well, it is connected to a special time with a special feeling, and I need this special sound, and if the sound is not there, something is wrong, you know. And so I always prefer the original version, and the new ones are nice. I listen to them every once in a while, but the old one is the real stuff, you know. I kind of understand this, and it's okay for me, but I'm not in agreement with that. For me, it's different, because now that I have worked on the songs, I think they turn out to be even better than they were before. I mean, I have the Word is the best example for that. Walls of Fire also is an example. And also, I mean, speaking of the EP, Contortions of War became a monster in this version, you know. And that's, I mean, the point is that, as you just said, I mean, 30 years or even, no, not more, but almost 30 years have passed for some songs. And hey, I mean, production has changed. I have different possibilities now. I can do things differently. I'm more experienced. My skills have become better and better over the years, hopefully. and so all this pays back, and all this makes those Reforged ones, especially on this last one, because I think on this last one, we just talked about this new SSL stuff, and the word in the production field has turned once again, and I think you already hear also that on the new album compared to number 1 and number 2.
Sure. Well, here's how I look at it. I go back to the first record. I mean, that's when I discovered the band, and I'll be honest, the 3 records, the songs from the 3 albums that Condition Red, Battering Ram, and Dark Assault, I'll be honest with you, I like the new versions of the songs better. And even the interlude EP tracks too, because I was really attached to those tracks, because I remember when that came out. For those that don't know what it is, the interlude EP had 5 studio tracks, and you had live songs, you know, some live tracks on it at the time. But I always,
the multimedia part.
You did, yes, that's right. The enhanced CD,
multimedia part, groundbreaking.
Yeah, that was the enhanced CD.
Nobody understood that.
No, you put it in, and you got this little low resolution multimedia. A lot of bands did that back then too, but it was one of those things where I was really attached to those songs. I always thought the first 2 records, I always thought that they stood on their own, and the new versions are kind of cool. But I think when you get to Condition Red, and you get to Battering Ram, and you get to Dark Assault, I think these songs, going back and listening to the early versions of the regular versions of those albums, it's not hard for me to do that, because
no,
yeah, you know, whereas
Condition Red and Battering Ram are also really, they have they are good sounding records. There's nothing wrong with them. So there would be, for those records, there would have been no need to be re-recorded.
Yeah, but
the only record that really needed a fix up was the Dark Assault one.
But those three, but I'll tell you what, the three albums, the songs you took from them, I actually like those versions better. It's just normally I don't like re-recorded songs. So I think with this, you not only give people that may not know much about the band a good, you have 3 albums of all the old material where they can go check it out and get all that on 3 records. But I think a lot of these, there's little nuances and little things you hear that are just a little bit different that I think sound really cool. I mean,
exactly, because that's what I meant there. I did little corrections here and there, maybe some choir arrangements, or maybe I also changed the vocal line a little bit, because all these songs are now in the original versions. They are recorded in straight tuning. I mean, E. The guitars have been tuned to E straight. Now we're in D. And so some of the lyrics and some of the vocal lines were a little bit too low for me, actually. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to change that, bring that to the next voice, raise it by a third or so, and bring it up a little bit. So that is a small change here and there, of course. And because of that, everything being one completely toned down, I was also able to sing higher pitches, and also I have to say, as a vocalist, I have improved over the years.
Yeah, and speaking of that, speaking of your vocals, I would agree with that. I never really ended up getting to be able to talk. I was never able to really talk to you about the album Firestar, which I thought was an incredible record. Maybe talk a little bit about that. You'd gone through some bad times. It's great to see that you've beaten the cancer and everything like that, and the band is out playing shows. So I just want to put that out there that you had that going on at the time. But I think that album turned out. I thought it was incredible. And how did that record do for you? Because the album before that, Skycrest, I thought was incredible. And then you come out with Firestar, which I thought was better. And maybe talk a bit about that record.
Yeah, I mean, Firestar for me was a surprise, I have to admit. It was a good album, but it was missing something for a long time, and I think the clock really was 5 minutes to 12 when I wrote the title track Firestar, Together as One, and In the Realm of Heavy Metal. Those 3 songs weren't on the album before, which was still a lot of good tracks on it, but those. The really ass-kicking stuff was missing. So for a long time I thought, Skycrest was an incredibly good album, and it's going to be hard to top that, and I probably won't make it, But then all of a sudden, I don't know why, I wrote those 3 songs I just named, and that turned Firestar into what it is. Not a good album, but a really great album. So and it was really interesting and super surprising for me to see how 3 songs can change an entire album, and what impact they could have on the rest of the material,
They did. Yeah, I thought that album flowed really well, but I'll tell you what, the song that I loved off the record is Demise of the Tyrant. That was actually that's actually one of my favorite. That's actually my favorite song in the album, and I say that because if I'm on my computer and I have music going, and I look at, it gives you a little playlist count. There's probably twice the amount of plays on that song than the rest of the record. But it's just the whole feel and vibe of that song, the groove to the rhythm parts of it, just fits so really well. And the chorus is like big. And I think it fit in really well with the first the first few tracks on it that are more of that old school kind of more straight ahead speed type stuff going on. So I thought the album turned out really well. And since then you've had, a bass player change, maybe talk a little bit about that. It looks like, again, you guys have been playing some gigs and you have a new bass player in the band.
Yeah. I mean, after almost 30 years, for Jan, he reached a point where it was just getting too a little bit too much for him to balance out his private life, his work situation, and the band, and he didn't feel to continue the band anymore. And of course, that was let's say a hard decision. But everything has its time in life, so to speak, and so now his days at Iron Savior are over, and so that's why in the beginning of the year we had this lineup change, and luckily for all the dates during the past years when Jan was unavailable, we already had a sub who filled in, Patrick Opitz, and so it was a natural thing that now that Jan departs, we asked him to take the job and pick up the bass for Iron Savior, and so we're very happy with Patrick. Mm-hmm. Now we have two Patricks, double Patrick attack, and he's a nice guy. He plays a very decent bass guitar, and I think he fits the band perfect. So of course, it's a different thing playing together for 30 years or then only for 2 or 3 years, but the band has a future. Maybe not 30 years again, but I think we'll be there for a decade at least.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the lineup, because when I'm looking at the guys playing in the band, I'm like, it feels like it hasn't been that long, but it has.
It has.
Seeing Patrick in the band. Patrick doesn't look like Patrick, I'm talking about your drummer. He doesn't look like he ages ever.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's a little bit like, it's like AC/DC, the new singer, the new singer, which is in the band now for, I don't know, 40 years or whatever,
Yeah.
But he's still, of course, Brian Johnson is the new singer of AC/DC for many people.
Yeah, that's funny.
Patrick still is the new drummer. I mean, I think he's in the band by almost 10 years by now, if I'm not mistaken. But still, of course, for many people, he's the new drummer. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. You mentioned the AC/DC thing. I was talking with somebody about Back in Black and how it sold like 27 million copies here.
Yeah, it's insane.
And they have the new singer Brian Johnson, 45 years in the band.
Yeah, the new singer. But it's and he'll be the new singer till the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy to think, bands like that, still playing, and then you look back, all these artists that I was into, you were one of the first bands that on my radio show that I really got into, and it's hard to believe that it's been you've been making these records as long as you have. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I went and had the first self-titled Iron Savior album with all these guests. And I'm like, man, that was like forever ago. It feels like it, 28 years ago when I bought that.
Next year it's the 30th anniversary. So.
And it will be. And speaking of that, one thing I thought was interesting about these Reforged albums, and I'll go to one of the songs on the album. You sang tracks that some of the guest singers did. So on you had Break It Up, Kai Hansen actually sang that song originally. You also had other tracks like the one, the track that Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian sang on, but you have your rendition of that track, your own approach to it. I thought it was interesting to hear you sing those songs, that I've been hearing Kai's voice on or whoever, you actually singing them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the last Reforged, it turned out to be a nice idea to have Kai sing his own stuff. Yeah. This time, it just didn't work out, and which is okay. And so I thought I could sing it myself this time, and because it was only Break It Up, and of course Forevermore. But that was a challenge for me, to sing that and to do that in a Piet Sielck way instead of Kai Hansen. I think it turned out good. I really like this Forevermore version performed by me, because we just talked about it. I think that my abilities as a vocalist have improved and evolved over the years. And coming back to that, speaking of these little changes, of course, when I was recording the original songs, I was a different person. I was 30 years younger. I had 30 years less life experience. I didn't had cancer. I had no family. I had family, but not like this. I was at the beginning of being a family guy, and of course, those 30 years have changed me. I wouldn't say that I'm a different person, but but of course, I mean, I'm not the Piet Sielck anymore than I was when I was recording "Riding on Fire," and of course that changes the way I interpret things. This changes the way that I sing, that I feel, and I think that even though it's subtle, and you don't hear it right away, but if you have that in mind, if you listen to the original versions and now the new ones, I think you're going to hear this. You find out, you realize that my interpretation of the songs has changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned going through life changes and how experiences change you. And I've gone through a pretty traumatic, bad experience, in my life. And you went through the cancer thing. How much, when you get through something like that, because you never know if that's going to take a wrong turn, how does that change you? Do you view life? I mean, do you view life a little bit differently? Because I know for myself, it changed my whole perception of how I look at things and how I look at time and how little time we have here. And it changed the way that I look and approach things just in life and anything. And did that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with you. Of course, I think it changes your focus, on things, things that you get angry about or that you find disturbing or annoying. They're not so annoying and so disturbing anymore, because I mean, there are other things in life which are absolutely super more important than those tiny little things that in life, and I think that you get a whole new perspective on what is important and what not,
Correct.
And for me, for example, there have been people. What I have learned during my cancer time is that I don't have to be nice all the time. If there are people where I don't feel the balance is right, fuck on them. I don't need them. They can go away. It's my life goes on without them, and I don't really want to waste time and energy anymore to make this going. Every cancer book tells you that you have to focus on yourself, and if something is taking energy from you, let it go. That's what I learned, and I think that is something you can also do without having cancer, because it's a good thing,
Yeah, I think but I think the biggest thing, you don't really think about changes like that until something crazy or bad happens to you. And I look back and you think to yourself, and the same thing. I mean, there's people that I just don't associate with anymore. You don't get I feel more at peace after going through some of the stuff that I've had to deal with. And you just look back at these people like, why did I have these people around in my life? Right. I mean, and you realize you've wasted time and energy either getting mad over small things that you look back at it, you think, man, why would I get mad over that? Or you just look back, and I was thinking about this the other day. I actually was going to post this today, is that I think about people that either could have been part of my life or not, and you look at how they are and you're like, man, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that person anymore. I mean, it opens up a different perspective about how short life is. And I don't know what it is, but I can feel a little bit of that focus on these songs. I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is not I like the second album as far as the songs, the track listing goes, but I like the feel and the vibe and the production on this new one better than the other two. And it just,
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I agree on that.
And there's songs on it that when I listen to this, some of these tracks were songs that when they came out, I was not as into them. Like Touching a Rainbow, for example, is a good example of a song that, to be honest, I almost forgot existed. And then I was listening to it and I'm like, why did I not like this song back in the day? Like it's interesting to go back on some of these tracks, because some of them are, like Contortions of Time you brought up. I love that version of the song quite a bit. But, there's songs like I'm looking at the song like Dragons Rising, I'm looking at, song, we brought up Eye of the World as a single. These were tracks that I didn't really focus as much on, or I wasn't as into back when they came out, but now I'm into them, which is really interesting now. And going back and then I listened to the originals, I just like the new versions of these so much better. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that these songs kind of speak to me now in a different way than they did back then, and the new versions especially.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think it's a mixture. I mean, you just mentioned Dragons Rising. Dragons Rising had a lot of little corrections in the drum arrangement, which was a little bit, it's, let's say, too progressive, on the original one. And now I think now with the new drum arrange, the song has a completely different flow. The way the drum was arranged on the original ones, the song was halting and breaking, and it was edgy, and so it wasn't developing very, very well, in my opinion. And now with this, with the new drum arrange, it has a flow, and the entire song now has a totally different, feel to it. Even though it is the same song and the melodies haven't been changed, but and also the way I sing it also did some changes. And this this is why I'm mentioning this. It's not only one thing. It's not only the way I sing it, or it's not only the new drum arrangement. It's it's the mix of everything, the new mix, the new production, the little corrections here and there, and the way I sing it, which make this Reforged album, I think, the best of the triple.
Yeah, I would agree. I went back and listened to the other two. The last one I think is pretty close. These are definitely, and it's no shade on the first Reforged album, but I think you just improved so much on these records, and you've brought songs that are kind of the lesser looked at or lesser known tracks that the people refer to by the band, and I think you've brought new life to them. I mean, that's pretty much what my review.
That's right. I mean, they're not really skeletons in the closet, I wouldn't call them like this, but they're definitely not the most famous Iron Savior songs, but since there is no bad Iron Savior song on any album, they're still good songs. They have been, and are definitely worth to be polished up like this. Yeah,
absolutely. So, have you started writing for another record? I know you had Firestar came out a few years ago. You obviously have this re-recording, this Reforged album done. Have you started writing for the next Iron Savior album? You got a new label?
Yeah, of course. I have a couple of songs already put together, but I was halted with this, of course, with the Reforged production, and right now I'm working on a different project because after Reforged. So it all leads to the big climax in 2026, where the new studio album is supposed to come out. So before that, we will put this Reforged album out in August. Then maybe also late this year or early 2026, we come out with a huge cover album. So it's going to be many fans have been asking me, why don't you do a cover album? You have so many covers and so many cover songs, and you really like to do a cover version album of whatever. And so right here I am doing it, because the label also asked me for it. And it's going to be, it's not metal songs that I do. I focused on doing it the crazy way, picking pop songs and mostly from the 80s, because I'm 60 years old. So those are the songs that pop up, immediately. And so, so right now I'm working on, we have Journey, Separate Ways, we have Maniac, we have Relax, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, we have, what else? Suburbia, Pet Shop Boys, everything there, it's going to be a jukebox of the 80s performed by Iron Savior. And I have to admit, I started working on this project with some doubts if it's going to be cool, and I have to say I love it.
I'll tell you what, love it.
It's so great. It feels so great. And for me, especially, it's such a great opportunity to let out this the the pop soul I always have, but I'm a metal guy. But of course, there's a pop vibe also in me that now I can let go and put it in those songs. I mean, they are in Savior 100%, but well, you're going to listen to it, and let's talk. I think we're going to talk about this in half a year or so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a kid in the 80s. I grew up with all that stuff. I'll tell you what, for those that haven't heard it, my favorite pop cover that you've ever done was the Bryan Adams cover, the Run to You song. It was a Japanese bonus track, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I love that too.
That is probably, because you've always done interesting, I've always brought this up, you've always done interesting covers. And they weren't necessarily heavy metal. I mean, you did Sweet Dreams. Remember that song? That's on the last Reforged album. And you've just always done some interesting, it hasn't always been heavy metal. It's always been an interesting song that you wouldn't expect. Like, I would have never expected you do a cover of a song by Seal, for example. But somehow you made it work. And you listen to that, and I'm like, man, I don't know what it is. It's hard to explain unless people listen to it. But I'll tell you what, the Bryan Adams cover is awesome. I really hope you put that on that record, or re-recorded or put a version of that, because that's probably it's a song, Run to You, for those that haven't heard it. But if you have the Killer Be Killed album, the Japanese version, that cover is probably my favorite one you've ever done.
Yeah, it's actually it's a good idea. I think I would put it on the album. Do some, bring it on the yeah. I think it's a good idea. I can do that.
And I grew up in the 80s, so I'm gonna be 50 years old in 2.5 years. And the thing is that when I was a kid, these songs were all songs you heard on the radio. And so when I hear people do covers of them, which doesn't happen often, but you hear it. Like you were talking about, like the song Maniac or Separate Ways by Journey. I grew up with that stuff. I mean, that was stuff I listened to as a kid on the radio. So I'm interested. That's interesting. I'm really, that actually intrigues me. And for whatever reason, if I were to take a compilation of all the cover tracks you've done, mostly, I mean, you had the Nazareth cover, I think, on the first album, but mostly it's either been 80s pop songs or Priest. Maybe, you had the Crocus song.
Yeah, there's Crocus and Nazareth.
Yeah,
so that's not Priest.
Yeah, but you've always done.
Right.
But you had, you did a pretty good cover. Your cover of Desert Plains for me is probably, like I said, my favorite version of that song. I still, even when that EP comes up, if I bring that up, I actually go and listen to that track. And I think you did Delivering the Goods on the single once as well, but. That Desert Plains track I think that song just fit your voice, so, but I'm looking forward to the cover thing. That's really cool to hear, actually.
Yeah.
And very
I think
intriguing.
You'll love it. I'm quite sure you'll love it.
Yeah, definitely. You got to keep us posted on that one as well. So, but yeah, I'm really, really excited to see some of these songs in this last album see the light of day as well. But I'm looking forward to that covers thing that you have coming on. Before we get going, let me address one thing. You obviously canceled your appearance at Prog Power. Something that I do want to say to people, that you didn't do the typical, I'm going to cancel because of this, and then all of a sudden you go and apologize for it. You obviously stick by what you said. But let's talk a little bit about that before we go. On why you wanted to cancel it. And, I'm curious, was it you that wanted to give the reasoning behind it, or did they tell you have to give your reason? I mean, how did that whole thing, what happened with that? And, give us a little clarification.
It was the second. I actually, if I would have decided, or if I differently, first of all, I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings with my decision to don't go. It was something that I really, and we at the band felt, no, with all this shit going on, we don't really feel good in doing it, and so we decided to cancel it. So we let the festival know, and they said, oh, come on, yeah, we can understand. But our fans are so we have so many, our friends are so intimate with it and blah blah blah, and so they deserve to hear the truth from you. And so I said, yeah, okay, all right, then they get the truth, and that's why. That's why. If it would have been my decision, I would have only said we cannot come. I'm very sorry. Hope to see you some other time.
Yeah.
And then there would have been no shitstorm and no discussion and no nothing. And so. Well, I mean, we decided to do so, which I think in the end is okay. Of course, it polarized, or people were getting angry about us, and some other people said thumbs up. Everybody, I mean, you have to decide that for yourself, how you look at the situation. Also, right now, I can say that I still feel good with the decision. I don't really see that things have calmed down and that the ground for coming to the States has changed. And I mean, there's a lot of ICE stuff going on. People are getting detained, and most probably nothing would have happened to us. But we just talked about cancer. I really did not defeat cancer to get stuck in a U.S. Detention cell for a month or so.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like that. And just one thing that I really wanted to point out. I mean, all those people calling us snowflakes. I mean, hello, calling a guy who beat cancer. I mean, I had to tell my children that I might die a snowflake. Yeah. I mean, how ridiculous is that? So,
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think the haters and stuff that come up with that, I've discussed this with other people in other situations. I would say we have a saying over here, an analogy, the one squeaky wheel out of the 2,000 shopping carts at the store makes the most noise. I think that probably a majority of people, I would say a majority of people don't care about politics, to be honest. Yeah. I would say that you're going to have a small number of people make the most noise about it. I know some of the people that commented in there that don't even go to Prague Power. But I think if you're going to, the people that just don't care about that and bought a ticket just because they wanted to see you, I think if those would be the people that are the happiest. But the one thing I will tell you, I want people to know this, and I said this in one of my podcasts, that you and I have always discussed things like, and I kind of outlined why you guys and some of the reasons why and how people in Germany view things. So I don't really need to go into that here, but you and I have always, if we've ever had a discussion, it's always been very civil. I have had more civilized discussions about politics with people not living in this country than people living here. Because when I talk to some friends of mine in Germany or in Japan or anybody that I know, there's no name calling, there's no BS involved here. Like if I say one person on one side does one thing, suddenly I'm a snowflake or I'm a libtard or I'm a Trump-tard or whatever you want to call it. And that's how it is over here. But with people like yourself and people that I know from other countries, none of you act that way towards me. So I'm just speaking from my own personal experience that I have had more civilized discussions with folks not living here than people living here. And I think the fact that you haven't said, hey, you haven't changed your mind and said, yeah, I regret this or whatnot. I think that's the best thing you can do because, you get these people that they come under all this fire and people start name calling them and things like that. Then all of a sudden they change their mind. Oh yeah, I regret this. But with you, you haven't done that, which you're standing behind what you said. And, regardless of whether people disagree with that, there's something to be said for standing your ground on, your decision to not, want to come here or any decision that you make for that matter. So I just want to let people know that I've watched some of the comments. I think it's gotten pretty stupid at this point, but I would say that for you and my encounters with you over the years, I couldn't imagine listening to a band for 25 years and suddenly, he doesn't want to come to the States and suddenly getting pissed about it and stopping. I mean, I think that's silly and ridiculous, but that's me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've taken that into account, of course, that would happen, that people probably would discontinue listening to Iron Savior. But on the other hand, if it's like that, then I cannot change it, because I cannot. Well, I mean, I have to stick to my thoughts, to what I believe in, and of course, I just did not feel welcome, and well, safe is a big word, but there are reports that even people with completely 100% paperwork getting detained because ICE finds an anti-Trump post on their cell phones. I mean,
yeah,
and
well,
I would have a lot,
Yeah, no, I got you. Well, there's an old saying though. I will tell you this, and I brought this up in one of my podcasts. I said this. There's the old Gene Simmons quote. There is no such thing as bad publicity, because I can tell you that there were more people probably checking out who you guys were. I know this wasn't your intention, but because that post blew up. Yeah. And there were people I had people messaging me, man, this band's actually pretty good. I never heard of these guys before. And I think that post got into the algorithms, and suddenly you had people checking the band out. I'd be interested to see long term if it gained you any followers, because like I said, granted, it caused a bit of a stir, as we say, but I mean, that post had I had to have a lot of reactions looking at, if you look at the stats, the social media traffic. It probably ended up getting people to check the band out.
Yeah, I mean, that of course wasn't intended. As I mentioned before,
if
I would have done it my way, I wouldn't have opened up this discussion. I would have said, we cannot come. Very sorry. Maybe visa issuing problems, which wouldn't be a lie, because they're having awful troubles, in putting together visas, and maybe we would have now canceled anyways, because the visa processing wouldn't have worked out. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, and not only that, but the amount of money last year they raised the amount of fees. I can't remember how much it went up. It went up a lot though, but we can end it off on a. Yeah.
The problem, I think the general problem is that I mean, I'm only a symptom. I'm not the cause. I only, on a band like Iron Savior, it shows that the United States at the moment have an image problem in the world. I mean, I just posted recently. I posted this article from one of the most important magazines here in Germany, Der Spiegel. Do you still want to go there? Answer: no, you don't want to. I mean, you're losing $70 billion in tourism, because people are not coming anymore. People don't go to Florida anymore. Now Los Angeles, you want to go to Los Angeles and be part of riots and look at National Guards? No, you don't want to go there, and somehow in a weird way, the United States have become something like a crisis area, where you better stay out and go someplace else. And I don't know. I mean, for me, it's really sad, because that how connected I'm to your country, and I really love the United States, and so it breaks my heart to see that. Honestly,
yeah.
And maybe that's why I'm so involved and so emotional about that. Unlike others who maybe are not so connected to the States. But my stepfather lived is born and raised in California. My mother lived for over 30 years in San Francisco.
Sure.
And of course, San Francisco and California is not the States. I know that, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's not boring like Ohio. You come here, nothing happens. There's nothing going on. Like it's funny when you look at it, when it's really funny. There was a map that somebody came out, like, what states do most people from Europe visit? And the states that were on there, it was New York, it was New York, Florida, and California. Yeah, and that was literally what it is here. Like, if you come to Ohio, I mean, it's very boring. You don't have all that stuff going on. So we don't see stuff like that. It's just that East and West Coast is where a lot of the craziness in the country comes from. But no, I understand where you're coming from on it, but I want to end it on a positive note. I do want to say that the record label that you are on has really been going all out. I think a lot for your upcoming release. I mean, I have received no less than probably 50 emails, it feels like, on the record, but they always respond on social media. They're always active on there. And anything to do with Raining Phoenix music, they're very active, which I think a lot of record labels don't do that enough. And I think that this is going to be a pretty good chapter for the band, because I think that you are going to essentially see people working a little harder, I think, as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the first releases for Perception, and of course they really, I mean, give it all, I mean, the team is young. I mean, they're the guys that came from AFM, but the rest of the team is rather young and very motivated. And I also see that happening. That they are quite present on social media, do a lot there, and so because that was something that was missing a little bit with AFM. They also did posts here and there, but not very much.
No,
it was basically the artist itself who was covering social media, and with a little done by the record label, by AFM. But let's see how that is working, and if that is gaining any more sales.
The guy that actually does publicity for them, the publicist that they hire, I know him really well. Is actually his name's Curtis. He's actually very, very good at what he does. One of the, in almost 30 years, I can tell you that he's one of the best people behind the band. Cool. I'm just, he's a good dude. He's got some really nice people working for him, and his responses are prompt, and he does a really good podcast too, as well. He does a music business podcast, and he has a different approach than a lot of people, because I think everybody stays doing the old school, hey, let's send an email blast out, and that's it. I could tell you he goes way beyond just sending out a mass email. Cool. So I'm really excited for you guys. Again, the Reforged album that comes out. It comes out in July, later this month, or is it? I don't remember what the entire.
No, I think the album is supposed to for 22nd of August.
That's what it is. It's August.
Yeah, okay. It's 22nd of August. It's Walls of Fire out tomorrow. Probably after
we post this, absolutely.
After we post this, it will be out already. So Walls of Fire, check that out. Also, very great version. And we have 2 more singles to come out before the entire thing will be released on August 22nd.
I'll give you my favorite version of my favorite. I have one. I always want to give one favorite re-recording. The re-recorded version of Stone Cold is my favorite on the album. Just so you know, I've always thought that was an awesome song. That was actually on the interlude EP. It was probably one of my hit repeat on CD player.
For me, it also was the best song on the interlude. And for me, also this one, even though I don't like the production, is a little bit thin on interlude, but it was okay. This one also is a song that not necessarily needed to be re-recorded, but since I did it, I worked on it, and I think with this one I changed not very much. I just recorded it the way it was, and it's. But I think the new sound makes the song really live up quite a bit.
I think the vocal harmonies are a little more prominent in it. And
that's right. Yeah,
that's one thing I noticed. And you bring out, I mean, you had them there, but they weren't, I guess, as loud. You couldn't hear as much of that. But on this version, you hear that a little bit more. And it's one of those, like I said, little tweaks on these tracks that, on some of these Reforged things, that these albums that you've done that I think are great. So, hey, man, it was fun to have you on yet again. I'm looking forward to the covers album. That sounds really intriguing, because you've always had interesting heavy metal versions of some of these pop songs, and again, it's great to have you on, man, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Same with me, Tony. It was great being with you again, and let's talk back in half a year or so about the cover things here.
Awesome. Well, hey, you take care. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and you have a good one.
You too, man.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.